I think we'll get started. Okay, okay. Well, welcome everybody. I heard that there were 30 people signed up, so I don't know if they're kind of running late, but since this is a business etiquette workshop, I'm going to start on time because that's one of the rules. Let me just figure this out. Okay, my name is Eliana Herdani. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in the state of Maryland, and I'm here through LifeWork Strategies to present this workshop on business etiquette to all of you. So before we get started, I would like to hear a little bit from you. Why are you here? What are you expecting to get out of the workshop so that I can really kind of fulfill your needs? Any thoughts on what are you expecting? What is it that you want to get out of the workshop? What is it that you want to learn? That's the part where you speak.
Well, I supervise 14 people,
Mm-hmm.
and we were in a cubicle environment,
Mm-hmm.
and the majority of us moved to an individual office environment. We still have some people in cubicles, and I think that was one of the things that was mentioned about, cubicle etiquette.
Yeah.
Just in how to deal with people on a day-to-day basis. I'm not sure business etiquette what that actually means.
Okay.
It just sounded interesting.
Okay.
It's written down there in the abstract.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Learn something.
Okay, good. Well, welcome. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments?
Everything she said was
Okay, so ditto. Okay.
The type of communications that you can possibly have with your coworkers and what's acceptable, what's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, respecting the tight environment.
Yes, yes, which is the basis of etiquette, the respect for others and yourself. But yeah, good, good. Any other thoughts or comments? No? Okay. Well, let's get started. Let me give you a little bit of the story of etiquette. I was looking that up in the internet to get some information. What's the background? And the word etiquette comes from the time where Louis XIV was in France. And what happened is his gardener, who would really take good care of his garden, started to get upset because the aristocrats were not respecting the lawn. They were just walking all over the lawn and the flowers, and the gardener got really upset and said that's not right. So he put out some signs, please, that were called etiquettes, and it says keep off the grass. So it really means keep off the grass. But the aristocrats, being aristocrats, didn't respect that. They, couldn't care less what the gardener was telling them. So the king had to really put out a rule and said no stepping on the grass. So that's kind of the origin of etiquette. And etiquette is really a set of rules of how we should behave with each other, communicate with each other, so that we can respect each other. The other word that comes in when we talk about etiquette is manners. And manners is the outcome of it. Etiquette is the set of rules, and then manners is what you do with that set of rules. So if we say somebody has good manners, that means they're following the etiquette. If they have bad manners, they're not following the etiquette, right? So I thought that was quite an interesting background story. Okay, so etiquette is timeless. It's been around for a long time. I like to think that even, cavemen, now with the Geico commercials, we kind of have a revival of the cavemen. I think even cavemen had some sort of etiquette. They would go out, they would hunt, they would bring the meat. How do you divide the meat? Who gets, which piece? Who gets, the softer meat? Or, so they had to have a set of rules. So in a sense, it has been around for quite a while. And it changed according to where you are, which environment you are. So these are some of the objectives of the workshop. But please do ask questions, tell stories, make comments, because this is really what enriches the workshop, and this is really how I can, fulfill your needs. So in a general way, we want to define that. We want to define etiquette and manners. We want to understand how communication skills can be improved when following the rules of etiquette. And communication in itself, it's a whole workshop. We could do a weekend workshop on communication. There's so many rules about that. But we'll touch a little bit on that. We'll discuss how technology has created new rules. It's called netiquette, the email etiquette. What is it that you write? How long? What's the format? There's this general rule that you don't write caps because caps is like you're screaming at somebody. That's a kind of a general rule. You learn the rules of etiquette for specific workplace situations and develop a plan where there has been a breach of etiquette. So these are kind of the general objectives. Before we get started with that, there is in your handout a quiz. So I originally wanted to give you some time to do that quiz, but I heard that we have people on webcam watching this workshop simultaneously. So we were just, with Anthony and Carolyn brainstorming how to do that best. So I think I'm going to read through the statements, and then we'll kind of do that together so that everybody has the opportunity. It's in the back of your handout. It says Etiquette Quiz. And at the same time, this quiz is kind of a checklist for you that you can go through to check your personal etiquette. Okay. So your boss, number one, your boss, Miss Alpha, enters the room. When you're meeting with an important client, Mr. Beta, you rise and say, Mr. Alpha, I'd like you to meet Mr. Beta, our client from San Diego. Is this introduction correct? What would you say?
Yes.
Yes? Anybody know? It's actually no. You usually introduce the most important person first, which in this case is your boss. Okay, is the customer, sorry. In this case, it's the customer. So the customer is the most important person at this moment, so you want to introduce that person first. When I read this, I also answered yes in my head. And I said, oh, that's interesting. At a social function, you meet the CEO of an important corporation. After a brief chat, you give him or her your business card. Is this correct?
No,
No. Why not?
because it's a social function.
It's a social function. Very good. So you don't do that. It's a social function. You answer the phone for a peer who is unavailable and ask, who's calling, please? Are you correct? No. What would be a better way to answer that phone? Would you like to leave a message? Very good. You're entering a cab. That one was a tricky one for me too. You're entering a cab with an important client. You position yourself so the client is seated curbside. Is this correct? Yes? Yeah. You make it easier for the client when you are going to get out. Although in New York, that's kind of tricky because you never know which side Manhattan, which side the cab is going to leave you. I was in a cab last weekend. I was in Manhattan, and he was asking me, which side of the street do you want me to leave? And he was on the left side, and I actually wanted to be on the right side. It was so packed that I said, it doesn't matter. I'm faster. Leave me on that side. I'll cross by foot because it is so crazy. Anyway, you're hosting a dinner at a restaurant, so you're the host. You've pre-ordered for everyone and indicated where they should seat. Are you correct? Welcome. What would you say? No? Why not?
Because I think it's an important person rule.
It's what?
An important person rule.
It's an important person rule? Okay. So you're thinking let them choose
Yes.
where they want to be seated? Okay. Any other?
I think you could have the seating design when you're hosting a party.
Uh-huh.
That's common, but I don't understand why you're ordering for everyone unless you pre-ask them what they want.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be ordered.
That's interesting. I was confused with that one too. The answer they're giving me is it's actually correct. And I think what they're thinking, etiquette is about having people feel comfortable. So I think that's kind of what they're thinking in the background. When you come in, you know already where you're seated, your food has been, it has been pre-ordered, it's easier for you to, whatever the reason for the dinner is, for you to do that. So, but I myself kind of thought, okay, are you being a little bit too controlling here? Yeah.
Vegetarians and people who
Right.
like allergies.
Yeah, people have food allergies, but maybe if you've asked them ahead of time.
Yes. So that information is missing. We don't know that. So if you would ask them ahead of time, that might be a good option. Good.
You think of it like a wedding, I guess, a formal wedding. Versus,
Yes.
I guess we were all thinking along the lines of a business,
Mm-hmm,
business dinner.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. A toast has been proposed in your honor. You say thank you and take a sip of your drink. Are you correct? No? Good. It's no. You wait. Well, to everybody else. Otherwise, you're toasting yourself. Me. You're in a restaurant and a thin soup is served in a cup with no handles. To eat it, you should pick up and drink it, use the spoon, eat half of it with a spoon and drink the remainder. Use the spoon. Use the spoon. Although the other day we had breakfast at a restaurant, it was quite interesting. They served the coffee in a bowl of soup. We were like, okay, now what do you do? The coffee comes in a bowl of soup. So maybe it's a new kind of thing up in Rockville. But yes, you use the spoon, of course. You're at a dinner and champagne is served with the dessert. You simply can't drink champagne, yet know the host will be offering a toast. What is it you do? You tell the waiter no champagne, you turn over your glass, you ask the waiter to pour water in your glass, or you say nothing and allow the champagne to be poured. See? You ask for water, you're saying water too as well. They are actually saying you say nothing, yeah. You say nothing because you don't want to kind of call attention to the fact that you don't want to drink or you cannot drink.
So what happens then when he has the toast and you're not drinking?
You just don't toast. I mean, you don't drink with it. But you still have, the moment you stop the waiter, no, not for me, can you please bring water, kind of disrupts the whole, and suddenly you're the center of attention. I think that's kind of the idea behind it. You're at a table for a restaurant for a business dinner. Midway through the meal, you're called to the telephone. What do you do with your napkin? Take it with you, fold and place it to the left of your plate, loosely fold it and place it to the right side, or leave it on your chair. D, on your chair. And the reasoning behind it is there might be crumbs in it, so if you put it on the table, they might fall on there. Yes, you're hosting a dinner party at a restaurant. Included are 2 other couples, and your most valuable client and his wife. You instruct the waiter to serve your spouse first, the client's spouse, or you and your spouse last. B?
I mean, if the spouse is a woman.
They give 2 options. It could be B or C. Yeah. So either one of those is okay. You're invited to a reception, and the invitation states 7 to 9 p.m. You should arrive at 7, between 7 and 9, between 7 and 7:30. Go early and leave early. At 7, C, A. A, B, C is correct. D is a no-no. So anything between A, B, C. You're greeting or saying goodbye to someone. When is the proper time to shake their hand? When you're introduced, at their home, their office, on the street, when you say goodbye. A.
And D.
D.
I mean, A and
A and D. Any other thoughts?
A and E.
A and E. They're all correct. Yes, they're all right. A, B, C, D. Yes, they're all correct. You're talking with a group of 4 people. You make eye contact with just one person, the whom you're speaking to, each of the 4 moving your eyes, or no one particular person. All 4? Yes. This one is an interesting question because there's a cultural component in here, right? For some cultures, the direct eye contact is not a form of respect. For some cultures, keeping your eyes down is a form of respect. So this is an American culture thing. But if you have somebody from a different culture, they might interpret that in a different way. The waiter is coming towards you to serve wine. You don't want any. You turn your glass upside down. Are you correct? No. Yes? No? It's no. It goes along with the champagne thing. If the host decided, you're all going to have wine, and if you can't have wine, you want to have wine, you just let it be poured in and you don't drink it. When you greet a visitor in your office, you say nothing and let her sit where she wishes. Tell her where to sit. You just say sit anywhere. B? B. Yes. It goes back to making people feel comfortable, which is one of the bases of etiquette. Is respect and comfort are kind of the values in terms of when we talk about etiquette. You're invited to a dinner at a private home. When do you take your napkin from the table and place it on your lap? Immediately, you wait for the host, you wait for the oldest person at the table, or you wait for the head of the table to take his or her napkin. A, immediately? Yes? Somebody's shaking their head down there? No? It's actually B, C, or D. So you wait for whoever is kind of the important person. You're scheduled to meet a business associate for working lunch, and you arrive a few minutes early to find a suitable table. 30 minutes later, your associate still hasn't arrived. What do? You order in lunch. You continue waiting and fuming. You tell the head waiter you're not staying. Give him your card with instructions. There's a typo here. To present it to your associate to prove you were there. And after 15 minutes, you call your associate. E. E could be an option. The one they give here is A, because you waited already 30 minutes. So it's okay to go ahead and order and have your lunch. If you're still hungry at that point, you might be so upset that you've forgotten a lunch with a business associate. You feel terribly and know he's furious. You write a letter of apology, you send flowers, you keep quiet and hope he or she forgets about it, or you call and set up another appointment.
Depending on how important they are, you might want to do A, B, and D.
Right, right, right. Well, the answer they give here is D, is you call and set up another appointment. But I think you definitely should apologize. I mean, even if it's in a written form or verbal form, there should be a form of apology in there. Okay, so that was kind of a general overview that you can use as a quiz, as a checklist in terms of etiquette. So etiquette, there it is a system of rules, and manners is the outcome of that system. So as I said before, if you are using the etiquette well, your manners are good. If you're not using it well, your manners are bad. Manners comes from the Latin, manus, hand. So it's the way you're handling a situation. That's the rule behind it. It's the way you're handling an interaction between two people or a situation at a workplace or any other place. That's the origin of it. These are some of the items we'll go through. Some basic rules: language, email, shaking hands, business cards, outside the office, eating out, holidays, addressing mistakes and issues, and amending mistakes. So we'll go over each one of those. Some of the basic rules when it comes to etiquette. Smile. Always smile. Smile is contagious. Smile makes us feel good. There's this whole research that when we smile and we don't feel good in our heads, there's an incompatibility. I was born in Brazil, raised by German parents, so sometimes English fails on me. So anyway, when you smile and your head is sad, it doesn't match. So actually your smile wins and you feel better. There's a theory behind that. And it's contagious. And actually it comes through the phone. When you're talking to somebody on the phone, they know, if you're smiling, if you're not. And you know, too, when you talk to somebody and that person is really upset on the other side or irritated, it changes the tone. So if you're smiling, it makes it better. Be helpful in any situation. Welcome. Always say please and thank you. We learned that, hopefully, from mom and dad. Be respectful to others people's time. That's a very interesting concept. I was born in Brazil and raised by German parents. These two cultures have very different ways of dealing time. And in a sense, we're kind of seeing that in this country right now with the Latino culture sees time in a different way than I think the American and European are more similar in that way. I remember living in Germany. The bus schedule on the road would say the bus arrives at 8:32 and the bus would arrive at 8:32. And if it wouldn't, people would complain. They would really write letters to the office. The bus today arrived at 8:33, and that's not acceptable. So the German culture is very much on time, and the American too. The Latino culture, from my own experience, it's like, Time is, it's a quality of the time, not exactly being on time. It's whatever, let's have a coffee, let's chat. It's a whole other different way of seeing time. But it depends on which culture you're in. I think that's an important piece. If you're working in a work environment where the culture says you need to be on time, you need to respect that. Otherwise, you need to find, a job in a place, if that's something you can't do. That's the other very piece to think about. If you have a set of rules in an organization, the policies and procedures usually provide that. Are you okay with following that? Can you do that? Or does it go against your own values or your own way of being? Forge office friendships carefully. You want to go slow on that. And some friendships can be really, long-lasting and very close, and others, so you want to go slow. Respect personal space. That's another thing where culture comes in. If you stand in line in Germany, usually you're standing here, somebody's standing there, there's not much talking. I know in Brazil, people stand right here, very close. People touch each other, if people read over your shoulder, if you're in the metro and the bus reading the newspaper, and that's fine, So it's a cultural thing. So the one piece for you is to have that awareness and say, okay, I have my own personal space, which is personal. So I'm okay with standing close, or I'm not okay standing too close. But there's also the other person's personal space. And being aware of that is very important, being aware of your own and somebody else's. If you realize that you're talking and you're moving, and that person is moving away from you, that means their personal space is larger than yours. So you need to respect that. So having that kind of extra observer that we create, like that other self that observes ourselves and say, I need to think of myself, but also of the other person. That's what etiquette is about.
I think I've heard like an arm's length is a good distance to start with.
It is a good measure, yes. It's a pretty good measure, yeah. Turn off cell phones during meetings and in public places. I think that's still in the making, the etiquette for cell phones. You can see all sorts of behaviors. I'm doing a doctorate program at GW, and the other day a classmate answered the phone during the class, and she was kind of hugging underneath behind and answering. And it's really thinking about, in the movies, people answer phones in the movies. So you're sitting there, and so it's really thinking about what's appropriate, what's not. And the basic question again is other people. If I'm going to answer my phone, how disruptive is that for other people? If you're sitting at a table, you're having dinner, you answer your phone, you're talking loudly, other people cannot talk, it's disrupting. So it's really thinking about other people. It goes back to that and asking yourself that. Be truthful but tactful. Be careful about full disclosure. So you want to be truthful, you want to be authentic, you want to say what you're feeling or what you're thinking or what you need, but you also want to do that tactfully. And communication comes in that case, especially assertive communication. And that's another whole workshop, but being able to be assertive. Because if you think of communication on a range, like passive being on one side, aggressive on the other, if you're passive in terms of communication, people will walk all over you. They will ask you things and you always say yes, and then you're resentful, and then you're upset, and then you're really not feeling good about yourself. Maybe everybody else feels good because you're fulfilling everybody else's needs, but you're not fulfilling your own. So that's not good either. The aggressive is not good either, because you will generate either defensiveness or people will be aggressive back to you. There are situations where these two ways of communicating might be important. If you're in a really dangerous situation, yes, you want to be passive. Or if you're in a situation that you've been trying and you really want something accomplished, maybe you need to be a little bit more aggressive. But ideally, you want to stay in the middle, which is the assertive. And this is another whole workshop that could be done. But the assertiveness is a way that you can explain or tell people what you need and what's not working, and at the same time have them express their need and what's not working, and hopefully find a solution that works for both of you. And that negotiation is also a learned skill. And sometimes we learn it at home. That's great if, if we had caretakers that taught us to negotiate, that allowed us to say what we needed, and then we could share that. And sometimes we didn't learn that at home. So then we grow up as adults and like, I don't even know how to do that. So we're on either one or the other end of the spectrum. So learning that is a big piece when it comes to etiquette. Okay, so there it is, language. We're thinking workplace, and all these rules that I'm presenting here today, they're very conservative. So we are on the super conservative side, and they can be tweaked according to the workplace. There are workplaces that are, way more relaxed. I'm thinking of a web design organization, young people in their basements. I mean, a lot of those rules probably wouldn't apply. But it's easier to know the rules that are really, the traditional ones, and then you can tweak and you can lax them. So don't be too casual in your language. Young people, everything is like, like yesterday, like I went to the mall, like, and things like that. So you don't want to sound like a teenager at your workplace. Use language consistent with your industry. There it is. Depending on the industry you're working with, the people you're working with, there are different ways of communicating. And it goes back to the awareness piece. You might come from one industry where you had a set of rules, and now you're in a different one. So it's observing and say, okay, how do people talk with each other in here? How do they communicate? What is effectful? What is not? How can I adapt that to my way? How can I change my way so that I can function? There's another piece about etiquette, which is adaptability. How can I adapt to this set of rules that this organization or this industry has? Don't tell jokes or use offensive language. In general, do not talk about politics or religion. I would add sports in there sometimes. It can get heated. People have different opinions, and use inside voice all the time. Somebody meant the cubicles. That's where the inside voice comes in. The inside voice is, lowering your voice and really realizing that you're inside a room with other people and respecting that. It's also the cubicle voice. Email. There it is. Treat email like a letter or a memo. Spell check, grammar, check review. Detailed subject line. The reason this is good is when you are dealing with a project and you're going back and forth and emailing a lot of people, it's so much easier to go back and find that. When you have a subject line that defines what it is that you've been communicating with. Organize your thoughts. So before you write, think about what you're going to write. Be succinct. People nowadays don't have a lot of patience and time to read through long emails, so get the message across real quick. My husband just signed up for an MBA, and one of the things they are learning is you don't use caps anymore at all. You don't use punctuation. You write kind of. It's about the message. Although they say spec grammar, of course you want to write the words correctly. But it's not so formal anymore. It's really about sending the message the shortest version possible. Format your email. Leave spaces. If it's a long email, if you have different points, do point 1, point 2, point 3, or have different paragraphs, short paragraphs. That makes it easier for the other person to read. If you have these block emails with 3 different messages in there or points in there, sometimes people need to read through those 3 times, like, okay, when you jump from one thing to the other. So leaving spaces between your points is good. Don't type in all caps. That means screaming, unless you want to scream. But don't do that. Don't send angry, derogatory emails. Recheck the 2 CC, BCC fields. I had a faux pas the other day. I wrote my husband an email, and it ended up on my daughter's brother's email. And I'll explain that. We're a very patchwork family, so my daughter has a brother from his dad's former marriage, my first husband. So we're all this big patchwork family. And my husband's first name is Andreas, and her brother's first name is Andreas. And they both, the last name starts with a K. So in my Outlook, they're right underneath each other. Thank God it was not a rated R email, and everything was fine. But it's very important. I got an email back where he said, "What exactly do you mean?" He was very confused about the email I sent him. So rechecking is important. Don't email pre-established mailing lists unless it's part of the culture of the organization or that you're working in. In general, do not hit reply all, because then all the names, will show up. Don't include huge signature lines or artwork at the bottom. And keep clip art to a minimum or not at all. Any thoughts, questions, comments, stories? Yes?
You mentioned that your husband is doing a program and they're not using caps or they're just typing.
Yeah.
Now, does that also include like what these kids do today with shortening words, like how are you?
Yeah. No. I mean, they write the words out.
Spelling short.
Yeah. But it's an interesting point, the text messaging on the phones.
They do it on email too. Right?
Yeah, they do. And I haven't read anything right now. There's no set of rules yet on where this is going, but it's out there. Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say, maybe adding a couple things like don't use weird fonts.
Uh-huh.
And people do that are really difficult to read with exotic colors and things.
Yes.
And the other is, if you have a choice, select the larger size than a smaller one.
Mm-hmm.
People using 9s and 10s for those of us who are getting older sighted.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, isn't there a feature on the computer that you can actually have it?
You can, but that means you have to go do that rather than
Yeah.
something readable when,
Uh-huh.
when you open it.
Yeah, good. So a font that's readable and a size that's readable for all ages, inclusive. Yes. So you see, so there's still lots of things that need to be defined, especially when it comes to email. And a lot of the etiquette rules also include our own shoulds, and that's a very interesting world. We all have our own set of policies and procedures or laws that could be found in the shoulds. When you think about, what do you think people should do, or what do you think people should not do? And that's where a lot of conflict sometimes happens, because you think people should or should not do certain things, and they think they should or should not. And that's where the conflict happens. So sometimes you need to go back, and instead of have a conflict or an argument about what I think you should do and what you think I should do, is say, okay, let's define what between the both of us, what is right and what is wrong, and how we can both find a should that works for both of us. Okay, so that was email, and as you can see, there's a lot to be added to that. Handshaking. Give a firm, strong handshake. Hello, my name is, first and last name. Men or women can initiate handshakes. So that's a newer etiquette. I think if you would think back, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 years ago, probably that was a different rule there. And never refuse a handshake if somebody is extending.
I do have a question about the
Yeah.
handshake issue. I think it's a hygiene issue, and I think you should really not shake someone's hand, especially if you see them coughing their hand and wash. I know it sounds crazy, but I do kind of have an issue with that. How can you, in a nice way, get around that?
Yes, that is a good question. My husband's a microbiologist. He's especially crazy about, not shaking hands. And my answer would be never refuse a handshake. So if somebody's really extending out the hand to you, it's really hard to, not respond to that. And if you want to have a hand sanitizer in your bag or carry that with you, or if there's a place that you can go right away and wash your hands, I would do that. But if you're in a position that somehow you can demonstrate, I'm not going to shake your hand, and the other person will not feel extremely uncomfortable by that, maybe that can be a situation. But it is a tricky situation, because we have been taught that we should handshake. It's a form of, I think in Asia, it's more of a greeting, right? We have some Asian background, isn't it? That, you do more of a distant greeting, right? Some of the, and in Brazil we hug and kiss 3 times. So you have there's another cultural component there, and finding a way that, it goes back to feeling comfortable. You feeling comfortable, but also helping the other person feel comfortable. And if by refusing a handshake, you're making them feel uncomfortable, it already generates kind of that weird climate between the two of you. I don't have a definite answer, so anybody has a suggestion or thought about that? What?
Sort of a joke. You can have a wrist brace on your arm.
Yeah.
Shake hands.
You walk around with a wristband, yeah. But it's a valid point, because nowadays, you know, with viruses and bacteria spreading so quickly, you want to take care of your health. Business cards. Okay, so first you shake hands or greet the person, and then you can distribute your business card. You don't do the business card thing first. Accept business cards, show interest, and show the same interest that you would like somebody to show when you give them your card. It goes back to thinking about the other person. So how would you like somebody to react when you give them your business card? That's the ideal way to react. And store the card in an appropriate place, safe place. Nowadays they have these things that you can actually scan a business card and you have it right in your computer. So you don't need to store the cards anymore. You don't need the Rolodexes anymore. Okay, outside the office. Outside the office, in a sense, still kind of it might be a social business function or a business lunch. So that's what they mean by outside the office. Keep your attire, your behavior, and your language consistent with that of in the office. So remain the same. While it looks like a party environment, it's not a party. Consider it a work meeting. If it's not a totally social, you know, your friends, if you're meeting with business. Eating out. Okay. There is in your handout, you'll see, and that might be harder for the people watching on the webcam. I don't know. Can you zoom in, Anthony, or is there that possibility? Or oh, there's no slide. Okay. Well, on the back of your handout, there's an etiquette of dining out, and there's just three basic settings. The basic place setting, which is a simple one, and then you have an informal place setting, and then you have a formal place setting. And the general rule is you work yourself from the outside in. Whether it's the silverware, whether it's the glasses, you work yourself from the outside in. Okay? So always use proper table manners. Don't order alcoholic beverages if it's a business lunch. Order something that can be easily eaten, right? You don't want stuff flowing around from one table to the next or hanging out of your mouth or stuff like that. Holidays. Again, we're thinking workplace. Generally, you do not need to give your boss a gift. Because it might be perceived as you might be, wanting to win a favor, you want to be the favorite one. So ideally not. If it's the whole group, if the whole team is giving the boss a gift, that's fine. But individually, it might create some imbalance. Depending on the workplace culture, it's appropriate to give a gift to employees who work for you. Again, you need to be careful that you're not playing favorites. You can say, I'm going to give it to everybody, give the same to everybody. Sometimes even just slight difference from one gift to the other might generate a certain, jealousy or, he or she likes him or her better. So it's kind of a tricky thing. I'm a therapist in private practice, and we also have a general rule that we don't accept gifts from clients. That's a no-no. But clients don't know that. We know that. They don't know that. And at the same time, I know, for instance, for my Brazilian clients, that will be extremely offensive if I would not accept that. It would really be extremely offensive. So I need to kind of educate my clients about that, or most of the times, these are, gifts that are general. I'll leave them out in the waiting area, or, share them with the other therapists that I work with. So that shows to the client, okay, I'm giving her, but everybody else is getting it. So it doesn't create too much of a closeness, which is what you don't want in a specific therapy. So the gift giving is a whole realm. It might change from industry to industry, but it's important to see what are the rules, what's the etiquette for your workplace. So create rules ahead of time. There it is. So having rules about gift giving, when are we doing that? Holidays, the whole Secret Santa, that's a good option. You have a limit in terms of money. And if it's a financial burden, you can be creative. You can just, a picture, you can create something, or just, help them if they have a dog. I'll take your dog for a weekend so you don't have to take care of the dog, go out, or, babysit, something. You can offer something that will help them. Time nowadays is a good gift. If you give people the gift of time, that might be a good gift. Any thoughts or questions in terms of the gift giving or what we've been talking so far? Any other things that you're not getting or that you need? No? Okay. Moving along. Addressing mistakes or other issues. So you send out an email by mistake, you forgot something, whatever it is, remain polite. Wait for the appropriate time and place. So you don't want to barge in your supervisor's office and create a dramatic scene. Use effective communication, and here are the rules. You recall the event, so this is what happened. You recall how you felt. I felt bad, I felt stressed, I felt overwhelmed. Discuss what you would have preferred. I wish I had done this or that. And for clarity, ask them to restate what you said, if needed. Sometimes that's not needed. And, we're all human, we all do mistakes. And the most important piece, that's kind of the therapist speaking in here, don't beat yourself up. Don't really beat yourself up. We all do mistakes, repair it the best way you can. Ask the person, what can I do to fix that? How can I fix that? Do it right away. Don't carry it with you too long. Otherwise, we start obsessing about, I should have, and what if, and you don't want these thoughts. They're not good. They're not helpful. Solve it right away and let it go. Let it go. Okay.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
Would it be all right to correct someone if they pronounce a word incorrectly? I don't know.
That's a good point, yeah. That is a very good point. My suggestion would be to ask them ahead of time if that's okay. So you create the rule ahead of time and say, you're saying if for instance, somebody comes from a different country and, like I wanted to, say that word and I didn't say it correctly. And you can ask them and say, is it okay, is it helpful for you if I give you the right word, if I correct you? And they might say, I don't like that when people correct me. And you have your answer, you know it. Or they might say, well, great, that actually helps me. Yes, please do so. And then you have that permission. So you created a rule between the two of you. That's one thing that gets us sometimes into trouble is the assumptions. We have our own, maybe you don't like that, so you have that assumption that you won't do that, and the other person is actually fine with that. Or vice versa. You have that rule that I'm fine when people correct me, and you do that with other people, assuming that everybody's fine, because we operate from our own perspective, our own set of glasses, and they're not okay. So you talk about that. What is okay between the two of us? And it might be okay in one relationship, not okay in the other. Good. Any other? Yes?
The way they pronounce your name.
Oh, tell me about it. Thank you. My name is Eliana, and it looks, when you read it quick, like Elaine, but the I and the A are switched. When I applied for a green card, I filled out probably about 50 forms, and my handwriting is really, and I made sure that I was writing in a very clear, the green card came back Elaine. So you're asking somebody who has a lot of issues with that. I think it's okay to correct somebody, especially if it's somebody that you're going to have a longer relationship with. If I'm, someplace and it's somebody I'm going to see once, I personally usually say, okay, that's fine. That's okay. But if it's somebody that I know that I'll be talking in the future, that I might have a relationship, I politely, and Carolyn had that experience this morning. You politely say it's actually this way. I say it happens all the time, and it does. But you want to help the other person feel comfortable. You don't want to point the finger and say, you pronounced my name wrong. So it's about going back to making the other person feel comfortable and getting your own needs met. That answer? Yeah. Good.
I run into the same thing as well. My first name is Ignatina.
Mm-hmm.
My last name is Francis, and I go by Iggy.
Mm-hmm.
And today I got an email from someone, and I've been at this agency for 6 months. And this morning I've gotten an email. Hey, Francis, can you help me with this? And I usually sign it Iggy Francis, so
Mm-hmm.
it just makes life easy for everyone. And very, very short-term relationship, if we're on vacation or something, sometimes I just make up a new name or by my middle name, which is Laura, just because it makes it easier
Yeah.
on people. But when you're in a work environment that you're going to be there for a
Mm-hmm.
while, you definitely do want to be called or acknowledged by your correct
Yes.
first name.
And you actually raise another point. It goes back to the etiquette, the email etiquette, is if you're receiving an email from somebody for the first time and you're responding, how are they writing to you? Are they writing dear, blah, 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 so you can write back, dear, blah, blah, blah? Are they just saying hi, blah, blah, blah? And then you look at the bottom. How did they sign? Did they sign, Iggy? Did they sign their last name? Did they sign Mrs. Doctor? And you address them the same way. You really address them the same way. It might change along the way, but you you go with that first contact that came your way. You keep that tone, whatever that is. Good, thank you. Okay, we have another, we have a self-assessment piece here that I would like to go over with you. Behaviors that are essential to high-level human relating. So you're going to score yourself. You don't need to share that. The scores go from 1 to 9, 1 being very weak, then 3 fairly weak, 5 adequate, 7 fairly strong, and 9 very strong. On how you feel about that. Ideally, when you do this now, and then you take it home or take it to somebody that knows you very well and ask them to rate you. And it might be an interesting thing, because the way we rate ourselves or we perceive ourselves might be different than how other people perceive ourselves. So if you have 1 or 2 or even 3 people that can do the same thing, that will give you even a better picture of where you are. So I'm going to read it out for the webcam group out there. Number 1, I'm not afraid to deal directly with emotion, whether it's my own or another's. I allow myself to feel and give expression to what I feel. So rate yourself. Number 1, very weak, you're not good at that. Or number 9, very strong, you're good at that. And if you have any question, let me know. Number 2, in my relationships, I act rather than react by going out and contacting others without waiting to be contacted. It's about initiative. Number 3, I express that I am for others even if I do not necessarily approve of what they do. I express that I am for others. Probably. Express that I am for others even if I do not necessarily approve of what they do. I think there's a word missing here. Not sure. I guess it speaks to being assertive. I mean, you respect to others. I don't know. I do not hide behind roles or facades. I let others know where I stand. That talks to being genuine, being authentic. I am not vague when I speak to others. I do not beat around the bush in that I deal with concrete experience and behavior. Talks about concreteness. I deal openly and directly with others. I know where I stand with others, and they know where they stand with me. Number 7, I see the world through the eyes of others by listening to cues, both verbal and nonverbal, and I respond to these cues. Empathy. Let me just make a little comment here about the nonverbals. This is what we relate to when we communicate. We might be in a communication with each other, and usually the structure of communication is you send me a message, and I receive that message, and I evaluate, interpret, think about the message according to my own set of values, experiences, assumptions, and then I kind of give you a message back, and then you do that process. That's kind of the basic structure. But there's a whole thing that happens between us that is so much stronger than what we are saying, than the words we're saying. One is the nonverbals. It's your body posture. It's your face. It's the tone you use. And that's what we actually respond to. You can say the same thing in different tones. And just by changing the tone, it changes the message completely. So being aware of that. Sometimes we say something and people react to us and we're like, oh, that's a strange, I wasn't even expecting that person to react that way. And part might be their own, their own set of who they are, their personality. But part might be, maybe my tone is kind of affecting that communication, and thinking about the nonverbals. And it's your body posture and the way you and the other piece is what I call the filter, is your personality, who you are, your experiences, your assumptions, your values, your age, your background, everything that who you are. There's no person that's like you. And sometimes you might be sending a message to me and I don't have anything inside of me that really matches that. So I kind of assume that that's what you might be saying based on what I know about that. And I respond to that, and that might confuse our communication. So asking for clarification is a very important piece. Let me see if I got you correctly, or can you just tell me what you heard that makes the communication clear? Okay. Number 8, I challenge others with responsibility and with care. I do not use confrontation to punish. That wouldn't be a good etiquette. I let others know the person inside, but I'm not an exhibition. Oh, there's another word for me. Exhibitionistic. I'm not exhibitionistic. I'm open without being a secret revealer or a secret searcher. Self-disclosure. That creates the whole gossip culture. And number 10, I examine my lifestyle and behaviors and want others to help me to do so. I'm open to change. It's about self-exploration. That speaks to that self-awareness piece that I was saying, knowing who I am, how do I relate to people, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, understanding. So this is a checklist for you. These are behaviors that help in terms of relationship, and etiquette is about relationship. Any thoughts or comments about this list? No? Okay, so as I said, if you have a set of people that can also respond that might be interesting. You might be surprised by the answers. Okay, I'm still working on the amending mistakes, so address the issue directly and don't ignore it or try to cover it up. So if you did a mistake, address it directly. Apologize to the appropriate individual and acknowledge that you made a mistake. Sorry, my mistake. Make any necessary amends, take any action needed to remedy the situation, and learn from your mistake and don't repeat it again. Okay, so before we finish, any final thoughts, any comments? We kind of touched on several areas and different topics about etiquette. Anything that you wanted to know and didn't, or that's not clear? No? Good. So we'll finish up with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Your manners are always under examination, and by committees little suspected, awarding or denying you very high prizes when you least think of it. So it's kind of, people are always watching you in a sense. They're kind of observing you, and your manners might get you places or not. I was reading this morning. I wanted to bring you guys a little joke about etiquette, and there was this one officer, in the military. The officer comes to the soldier and says, "Soldier, do you have change for $1?" And the soldier says, "No, buddy." He says, "Yes, buddy." And then the officer says, "What? You need to watch your language, how you're addressing me. I'm your officer. So let's start from the beginning. Soldier, do you have change for $1? The soldier thinks and says, "No, sir." So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for coming. And please fill out, there's an evaluation form. Please fill out. Let us know if there's any other topics that might be of value. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.